Hey, it's Wednesday, which means it's First and Ted, and the inaugural First and Ted with the new overlay. Thanks to Ted and his homie. I gotta say, Ted, it looks pretty crisp. Looks pretty legit. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, no problem. My pleasure. We can both thank Roscoe's Mister, aka Chris Haynes. He is a big Niner fan, a big USC fan, and if you've been in the best 49er spaces on Twitter, he's usually the one running them. So, great guy, great work. Speaks for itself, but it doesn't always tell you where to find it, and that's how Roscoe's Mister is his handle. You can DM me, and I'll happy to hook you up if you need any help with it.
Yeah, I might need to get on that. I need to do a little updating on some things that I've had on the channel. But hey, man, it's a weird week because we had the Thursday game, and then we had no Sunday game, but now we have a Saturday game. So it's kind of like is it too early to preview I almost said the Redskins, the Commanders, but we still can kind of just talk about the state of things and maybe peek a little bit into the Commanders. This team has been rolling, 7 straight wins. They're a playoff team. They are the NFC West champions, pretty much locked into the 3rd seed, or you could say that they are locked into the 3rd seed with a chance to still get the 2 seed, though I'm not holding my breath. I don't like to depend on other teams, and that's kind of where we are. Real quick, I just want to say to hello who's in here before we get talking. Mariah, faithfully, of course, always supporting my stream, no matter who's on. She's been doing it for a long time, and I just want to say thank you very much. Good to see her in here. I appreciate the support. Damian Lee, old-time follower of the channel, thanks a lot. Kenny, a newer person to the channel. I think I saw him on Monday. He was in here, so I just want to say thanks for returning. And of course, another oldie but goodie, Raphael 562, pretty much supports everybody. But he was one of my oldies but goodies from way, way back when I probably had about 150, 200 subs. So thank you so much. And Damian Lee, but I already said that. But thanks again, anyways, for coming through. So we won the West. We secured a playoff spot. I haven't talked to you since that happened. How are you feeling, man? Are you motivated? Are you excited? Kind of almost like a relief? Or now do you feel more anxiety because now the Niners are expected to do something and you feel maybe things might crash and burn and come back to reality? What's kind of your mindset?
Definitely. Oh, I'm so excited that we won the West. I'm so excited that we have at least the number 3 seed locked up. To do it in Seattle and in week 15, even better. That's the earliest that we've clinched the division since 2011. 2011 is monumental because it's also the last time we swept Seattle was 2011, the Seahawks. So both of those are huge. Do I feel like we're in for a crash? It's possible. And our defense is playing elite. I do worry a little bit about, Mr. Purdy. He's played well. I think he obviously played well in the Dolphins game, really well in the Bucks game, pretty well in the Seahawks game too. And, I would just say, especially without Debo, right? Especially without Debo in the last 6 quarters. I think he's done great, especially now that DCs are starting to get some tape on him. We haven't seen a noticeable drop off. So that's really encouraging. Could we have a letdown against the Commanders? Absolutely. They have a really great defense. Their D is the best we've seen since Denver on paper, and Chase Young isn't on paper because he hasn't played this season. So they could be the best defense we've seen all season. I just did my Commanders preview article between talking to Mariah this morning on TED Talks Ball, and now here with you. And I think we have a slight advantage on both sides of the ball, but it'd be even better if we got Kinlaw back, if we get this Kalia Davis to play some for us. And it looks like, I don't know if you saw today, but Charvarius Ward was not in a no contact jersey today. So he was limited yesterday. And I don't know if that's a full practice, but there was no blue, no contact jersey today, which to me sounds like a really, really good sign that he'll play. It was one of my big concerns.
Yeah, he had the concussion. at the end of the last game, so he was in the protocol, or at least no, they said it wasn't a concussion, but he was still in protocol. And sometimes it's weird. You can you could pass the initial test, but then end up getting diagnosed with a concussion afterwards, which is kind of strange. But that does happen. So good to see that.
Somebody was saying this morning that that it was Kyle who actually talked to him on the sideline, and he just didn't seem right, so Kyle held him out.
Yeah, I mean, any head injury, even if it's not sustained concussion, I've whacked my head in life, doing things, and I didn't have a concussion. Like I hit my head at work one time on some steel shelving. I worked in like a warehouse in the back and stood up too low. It was a low hanging, and I cut my top of my head open. But I went and I got tested at the doctors with the smelling salts and everything, and they determined I didn't have a concussion. But I rang my bell. Whoa. It was like you could hear the noise of your head banging into whatever it's banging, like echoing through your skull. It's kind of it's hard to even explain. It's just one of those things you have to have happen. So yeah, anybody, if you whack your head hard enough, you're going to be on another planet. So it's better to be cautious. Even if you don't think someone has a concussion, because you just, it's a smart thing to do. I think Kyle was pretty sure that they'd win that game. So good on Kyle. I'm glad he's feeling better, and we need him. He's one of our best players on defense this year so far. So
yeah,
awesome.
And we got to see a little Janoris Jenkins too. It's kind of
a little bit of Jack Rabbit.
He seemed to be up to snuff. I didn't see him botching anything too terribly, so that was nice to see.
I guess the overall arching question right now is, everybody's talking about it. A lot of people try to study tape and try to see when the fall off is going to happen with Brock Purdy. I guess my question to you, and then I'll kind of answer it too, is how do the 49ers and Brock Purdy kind of stay ahead of the curve? A lot of people are expecting him to crash eventually and come to reality, being a 7th round pick. I keep saying it to everybody, hey, you guys got to relax. He's a 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. And, because in your mind, you're like, this can't be a forever thing, right? He can't be this effective long-term. But as of now, it looks like, teams have gotten tape on him, and he's still been able to adjust and be not necessarily a gunslinger. He's not Mahomes or Allen. He's not throwing for 400 yards, but he does well within the construct of the offense. And they score points. And they win. And that's really all you're expected to do in the Kyle Shanahan offense is don't be the reason we lose. Don't throw that game tilting interception where, you could have just thrown it at the ground or, took a sack or threw an incompletion, but instead you're forcing it. So what's your feeling on him staying ahead of the curve? And do you think it could be, I can't say necessarily a long-term solution, but that it can be something that maybe he is good enough to play in this league?
Yeah, I think he's starting to show that 3 wins against 3. They're not playoff teams, but they're all in contention for the playoffs. The Dolphins, Bucks, and Seahawks are, they all could make the playoffs and have been in the playoffs at some point this season. And so good teams, right? I think playing this Commanders defense is really going to tell us a lot. Especially a team with this monstrous D line of Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and I'm pretty sure Chase Young is going to play as well too. Definitely the best D line we've seen, definitely the best D interior that we've seen. We thought we were going to get it with Vita Vea and Akeem Hicks against the Bucks, but Vita Vea went down really early in that game, so it wasn't a real adequate test for our interior offensive line. And can he keep going? I think he can. I mean, I think Debo coming back will help. I saw that he was not limited in practice today, but working out on the side, which is still a really good sign that he's already at practice, if not in practice. So I think Debo will help. But yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy, kind of like what I said about Mac Jones before the draft and before we saw Mac Jones play. I think he's better than Mac Jones right now, but a similar type player in that, kind of similar to Heineke too. I see a little bit of Purdy and Heineke, a little bit of Jimmy G and Heineke. So, can he keep it going? Yeah, I think he can. I think he can keep it going. I think he can be a little bit better than Jimmy G, which is maybe all we need. That's all we really needed last year. And all we really needed in 2019 was just a little bit more from Jimmy G. I do think Purdy can give us that.
What's weird with Purdy is, for a guy that was drafted where he was drafted and being the size that he is, he's pretty cocky, pretty self-confident. I had a childhood friend who kind of reminds me of him. You know, he's a small guy. I mean, little dude, like 5'6", 5'5", 5'4". I don't know what he was exactly, but he was as mouthy and as self-confident as you'd ever want to meet in your life. And I was like, 6'3", and I was super not confident and very self-conscious. So there was like this weird dichotomy where the personality should have been switched, right? Like the big guy should be the confident one, and the small guy should be like the, bashful, like I'm scared of everybody. And so like I kind of see that in him, and it's kind of like I've seen this before. I knew this guy who played special teams in high school, and he was a small dude and didn't care, or played safety on defense. So, he doesn't care, and he's from the looks of it, he doesn't really have any issue talking to his teammates in a way to get them motivated or tell them to shut up, which is awesome. I don't think you've ever seen that. He's just very level-headed and calm on the field. He never seems like anything's too big for him. You see that, or you hear that all the time. Nothing ever seems too big for him, but you really get that sense. He never looks like he's in any type of panic. I mean, what was the number one thing with Jimmy anytime we had a pressure situation? The feet started pattering, and he was not pump faking, but like patting the ball, and it was just like he looks so uncomfortable in pressure situations, and he looks completely opposite. I think, to me, the way I could say this, because I was listening to KNBR earlier today, or from last night, I think, is a lot of people think it can continue just by doing what Kyle asked him to do. Kyle has the ability to kind of right the ship, or to be the sail on the ship, and he just has to, take the wheel and kind of listen to Kyle's directions. You know what I mean? Like, not playing outside of what he's able to do as far as talent and ability. I think he'll be fine. My whole thing is just health, really. He's not a very big guy, and he's not afraid to get mixed up with the big men and do, get physical. And I'm just like, please don't. We have no other option. I do not want to see Josh Johnson as our quarterback, but I think he's very able. I have a realistic mental expectation of this season. I'm just in the mindset right now of just riding this wave and having fun and appreciating it while it lasts. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to everybody, there's always those people who have to be the guy on Twitter who has to be the analytics guy, or the guy who thinks he knows better than everybody else and doesn't let the fans be the fans. They always have to be the one that spoils it by over-analyzing everything and trying to be the smartest guy in the room. And sometimes you got to turn off your analyst cap, or your I'm better than everybody and I'm smarter, and just kind of go by touch and feel and by sight. So
does that guy say watch more film?
Yeah, I've had people tell me, yeah, you got to watch more film, or actually I watched the film and Kittle was only in for 2 plays. And it's just like, why do you have to be that person? You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying it. I think the Niners have a chance to do something special. I think this defense is really good. The host, I think it was not Jennifer Lee Chan. It might have been it's another person. She runs her own website. Forget her name. Chandler. Anyways, she just says that she thinks that health is the biggest concern and the biggest worry, and I agree with that. I think health is the overriding factor with everything, and I do have confidence that Purdy will do his job and do fine. And Kyle seems as comfortable and as relaxed as we've seen him in a long time, so that tells you what he feels. You see the defense and players around Purdy who seem very, very comfortable with him being in control. So if they believe it, the coach believe it, people who are in the building every day believe it. And I think us as fans really just need to let this thing play out and stop trying to be like, we're smarter than everybody and trying to break down film and overanalyze stuff, because after a while you take the fun out of what's really supposed to be a sport in a game. So
was it Tracy Sandler?
Tracy Sandler. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, she was on KNBR last night. And she was talking about, they asked her kind of her thoughts on the season and what are her biggest concerns. The same questions we've talked about, like, is this ride going to come to an end with Purdy, kind of things like that. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing I really like about him is he runs play action well from under center. He can turn his back to the line of scrimmage, unlike Jimmy G. It really allows for a lot more college use check to be in formations. And Collie Young, who I'm in a chat group with, and who's a lot of, an audience member for a lot of content creators, was in, I guess, a chat group with Brad, who's like kind of like the offensive line guru.
Brad Graham.
Brad Graham for the Niners. And he was saying that Brad felt like McGlinchey had a really good game against the Seattle Seahawks, and that Purdy has helped McGlinchey by having more of these, when you're under center, there's more threat of the run. Therefore, he can run block more, and he's not like back on his heels like you are in shotgun, where you're kind of already a couple steps back, and there's no mystery as to what's going to happen. And McGlinchey with no mystery, that's a scary sight. So I think the ability to run and the threat of the run helps him to pass block better, maybe a little bit. So all those things bode well for young Brock Purdy, I think.
Brian Culp says that Ted and Aaron, Batman and Robin, let's go. Yeah, Ted would definitely be Batman. Batman's older.
I mean, there you got me.
He's like the retired Batman, and I'm like the almost semi-retired Robin. I'm getting there. Sorry. Sorry, Ted.
No, that's fine. I don't care. The only thing though is you're the Batman of YouTube channel, because you've been at this way longer than me. I mean, I'm just like a baby, just like a month and a half in on this thing.
Well, we could be like in a multiverse. There's multiple universes with the same hero played by different people. So, and my multiverse, I'm the Batman, and then yours, it's same thing. So, Brian Culp. Oh no, excuse me, it wasn't Brian Culp. Cowboy Angel made a good point. He said Drew Brees was too small too. Yeah, that was the talk. And Robert Arquez says Purdy is better than people think, and that's the thing. Robert, a lot of us are kind of mentally trying to like accept, because it just doesn't seem possible, feasible, real. Last pick in the draft, small, weakish arm. Teams had him completely off their board. Some teams. So that's why a guy like me is just kind of sitting there and enjoying it, because it's like, this isn't supposed to be happening. But the Niners have this perfect mix of talent, great coaching, and a culture that is all mixed with this perfect, even penalties have kind of gone our way this year in some games. Injuries have kind of gone our way in some games, where you think a guy's out and he ends up being out a lot shorter time. It's just been a weird season. And I kept telling my brother, I was like, maybe it is the Niners' year if they win a Super Bowl, that they've just had breaks in some games where you think the quarterback throws a game-changing interception and it ends up being called back. So we'll see. We will see. There's still, we got this game and 2 more games, and then we go into the playoffs, and the playoffs are one and done. So nothing is for certain. Nothing is guaranteed. I'm just enjoying it. So we're locked in the 3 seed, possible 2 seed.
Almost happened over the weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. There was people, and I know you guys that follow me on here, follow me on Twitter, and are very aware of what goes on Twitter, because you guys, I see you comment. People pretty much just proclaimed that the game was over, and I just had this sneaky suspicion that it wasn't going to be. And it got me really mad at the end when they actually came back.
You can blame me for it.
You were one of them. And I was like,
nope.
See...
No. I'll get to it, but go ahead.
You were one of them that was kind of calling against it.
No, basically I didn't even know the game was on. And, it's because football's on a Saturday, right? I mean, I knew it happens every year, but almost every year it catches me by surprise. And so somebody tweeted about it right at halftime, and they said, it's 33-0. The Colts are beating the Vikings. And I was like, oh, well, I should go turn the game on. And I was like, or no, they're already winning 33-0. Maybe I should just stay away so I don't jinx it. So maybe I jinxed it by staying it away, right? I mean, I don't know, who knows, but that's why I said you could blame me.
I mean, even I think Jesse Naylor even said that we were tops in the West or something, and then he edited it, I think, on his community tab on Twitter and was like, actually, like it didn't happen. Oops. I let my mind go there, but it would have been awesome. The thing is my question to you, like I said, and then I'll comment on it is, what are you willing to risk if there's nothing else more to gain? If, say, it, for all intents and purposes, looks like the Niners can't improve their seeding. Do you keep playing and banging your head against the wall and, possible injuries can happen? Or do you say, no, we're going into the playoffs with momentum, seeing how we're not going to have a bye week? And if it happens, something happens, it happens, but we're not going to change our approach.
I mean, everybody wants the 1 seed for the bye week. So why wouldn't you take one week 18 against the Cards, where you could probably rest a ton of folks and probably still get a W?
Right.
For this weekend, I just want to see less Christian McCaffrey. I felt like Kyle played him too much in the Seahawks game. I wanted to see Jordan Mason earlier in the game. The people I was watching the game with, my buddies, were like, why hasn't he put in Mason yet? And I was like, well, this game is really important because, we haven't beat Seattle, barely in the last 10 years. And we beat them only in 2019 and 2011 there in Seattle. And we only swept them in 2011. And it's the 7th win in a row. And it's, the clinching the West, and it's the number 3 seed guaranteed. So I think Kyle rode Christian McCaffrey a little bit longer than usual before putting in the closer, if you will, JP Mason. And I was actually okay with that because I was like, well, maybe we're overusing him a little bit now so that we can rest him a little bit more in the coming games, because now, sort of like the pressure's off. But, what I would love to see us rest some starters. I'd love to see us rest Bosa, Dre, Fred. I'd love to see us treat these last 3 games almost like preseason games, where you start your starters in the first quarter, they play a few series, maybe the whole quarter, and most of your best guys are out by halftime at the latest. That's what I would love to see. Now, what do I expect to see? I think Kyle's going to have his foot on the gas until it's mathematically proven that we can't get the number 2 seed, which realistically would mean, unless we lose this weekend and the Vikings win and then we're 2 games back, I think the soonest we'd see rest would be week 18 in a massive form. I mean, obviously, as games, if we're blowing people out, we'll get rest. But, that's the soonest I would see people not actually starting, maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset of going in with momentum, but at the same time, if there's nothing to be gained and you have stars out there that don't need to be out there, then yeah, I would say bring in some backups. Now, you can't do that with everybody because there's only so many players on the roster, right? Offensive line might be on the field still. Maybe you pull Trent Williams. Skill position players, if Debo doesn't really need to play, why play him? Hold him out. Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, let's see more of Jordan Mason, and let's see more of TDP and maybe some Tevin Coleman.
I'm surprised you can even remember TDP's name.
We don't see him.
That guy? Who is that guy?
I'm sure we'll see him in the future. I'm sure next year he's going to be something of a regular name because someone's going to go down with an injury, probably Elijah Mitchell again. And he'll be in there playing and he'll be like, wow, so this is what we were missing. And then everybody will be like, why didn't we play him last year? And it's just like, it just never ends. It's never, nobody's satisfied in this fan base, but it's whatever. It's funny. So yeah, I would love to see us get guys out that don't need to be in there. Like you said, Fred Warner, Greenlaw, Bosa, we have guys that can fill in quite nicely. And if we get the guys back on the defensive line who we think we might be getting back, then they definitely might be able to do it. It's weird, man, because the Niners have so much momentum, and I'm sorry, people who don't believe momentum is real in sports are absolutely out of their mind. It's so real. Games turn on an injury where a player that is really good goes down, and the team mentally just completely leaves the game, and then the other team just completely takes over and dominates. Or somebody goes down and they rally and they come back. Things like that happen, or it's just a turnover happens in the middle of a blowout, and then all of a sudden the other team comes back. And then look at what happened last year with the Colts, with the who came back again? Was it not Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and then they came all the way back. It was once that ball got rolling, I didn't think it was going to be stopped, and we were right. So it is what it is, man. Like you take care of what you can take care of, and like I said, if there's nothing to be gained and we can improve our seating, then I say, what the hell? Take them out, rest certain guys. No Border Sports. Ryan says, don't pull the O-line and get Brock hurt. Yeah, I would. Hell, let's put in Josh Johnson. Have Jacob Eason as the backup. And listen, if you have nothing to gain, why be in there?
But the problem is, you do have something to gain from Brock being in there. He needs
right. Well, that's a difference. So maybe
unless you believe he's peaked and or only incremental increases. But if you believe for the most part that he's peaked already, then maybe you do pull him. I don't know, but I it's hard for me to believe, even as limited as arm strength as he is and as small as he is, that he couldn't get a lot better than he is.
Anybody with reps can always get better. Yeah. They see more things.
Especially with these weapons.
Right. And he's still, I don't think they've peaked with him. I thought that the Tampa game was as close to peaking maybe, but I think they could be even better, to be honest with you. That what it is when you're up like that, why keep guys in? So it's not like you, if it was a game where it was like a back and forth game where the offense had to keep scoring, that's when you want to see. And to go back to Brock Purdy and what we talked about, I was listening to the locker room rant last night, and John V, he was on the channel on Monday with us. Props to John. He's a great guy. Freaking high energy. I love his deal.
And I'm gonna I call him the Vornado.
He's freaking dude. I love it.
Yeah.
He's the guy you got to have with you when someone starts arguing football. You're like, get him, dude. Yeah. Go get him.
Sick him.
And just crushes the person, and then the person has to start taking personal shots because they don't know anything. He made a good point about with Brock Purdy is we want to see if Brock can do this from behind.
Yeah.
The Niners are a fast break team. The Niners play fast break offense. They're like a team that is front runners,
Mm-hmm.
We're good when we have a lead and we can keep scoring and the defense comes in, shuts it down. We come back in, we score again. That's why, maybe keeping him in there. Maybe we are in a game that we're behind that, the seed is possible and Brock's still in the game, but we're behind by, 10 points. Can Brock bring us back? Now, that would be the only time you would say, let's sacrifice a possibility of him getting hurt and see if he can do it. And at the same time, we secure the 2 seed. And then we got a home game, possibly 2 in the playoffs. So that's the one thing. And I know we were talking about seeding, but that's the one thing about Brock I would like to see. I want to see him in a little bit of a different atmosphere situation. You want him to keep passing these tests, these different tests, we got to see him after a team gets film on him, or, we got to see him on the road to see if, he can deal with the atmosphere. He's checked both those boxes and played fine. So, I guess the last one would be, let's see him from behind. Can he, and people need to stop doing this. Stop with the Joe Montana comparisons. I want to punch you in the face.
Please.
Stop. No. Joe Montana was the GOAT until the GOAT became the GOAT. So stop. I understand, he's cool under pressure and he doesn't look stressed and he doesn't have a strong arm like Joe, but stop, please. If you were within like 5 feet of me, I would whack you. Don't do it. But yeah, that would be the one thing I would like to see from him. I'd like to see if he can get a comeback in him and bring him back. I think he can.
We were losing to the Dolphins when he came in. Was it 7-3 when he came into the Dolphins game?
Possibly.
Yeah,
I think it was 7-3.
I mean, but that's not 10 points. That's only 4.
I'm talking about a game where it just
a 2-score
nothing's been going all day, and then he's able to pull it out of his ass at the end.
Yeah.
So, but that would be something to me. That would be kind of another test. Speaking of the playoffs, 2 of the possible matchups for the 49ers could either be the Commanders again or the New York Football Giants. Personally, I don't want to see the same teams twice because there's always that chance that they beat you. Because that's just how things work. I mean, look at the Rams. We smacked them around and then they beat us in the NFC Championship game. If I had my pick, it would probably be the New York Football Giants. What's your opinion on because those seem like the 2 likely opponents that we're going to face?
Give me the Giants, man. Their defense isn't nearly as good as the Commanders. And they say defense wins championships because I think the refs, let the defenses play a little more freely. Oh, Lawrence in the house. Nice.
What's up, Platform 246? Lawrence Jackson.
Yeah. So, for me, I'd rather play the Giants. I mean, I know Saquon Barkley is a beast. I know Danny Dimes is a running threat, much more than Taylor Heineke is. But I feel like the Commanders are a better team, and I'm more concerned about their defense, especially in the playoffs. Yeah. Especially because Chase Young will have a few more weeks under his belt. I think he'll be maybe back up to full speed by then if he isn't already.
So I got a little bit of somebody telling me that I'm a goof because it says Montana didn't have a strong arm. Or I think he's trying to say I'm an idiot. That was it. Montana didn't have the strongest arm in the NFL. He did not.
No, not even at all. That was not why he was drafted. He was mobile, and he was smart, and he was accurate.
He had a functional arm. Like, he was strong enough. But I mean, if you look at that era with Kelly and Marino and Elway that were drafted shortly after him, I mean, those guys had cannons.
Yeah.
But in the clutch, that arm couldn't get them over the top. And the little skinny guy with the medium arm who looked like a kicker that everybody was just like, look at this guy, was the better player. It's not always about your physical tools. It's about this and this.
And even though Joe didn't have a cannon, I mean, he had a bigger arm than Purdy. I'm pretty sure. I don't recall him ever underthrowing Jerry Rice. And Joe's also taller too. I think he's 6'3". He was 6'3" when he played, and Purdy's about 6'1.5". So that matters too, if I recall correctly.
Joe Montana's my favorite player growing up, man. I idolized him. Skinny, tall guy like myself, big nose, half Italian, half Irish. That was my dude. And then the fact that he met family of mine in Italy about 1989, that was like, okay, he's pretty much family. He had dinner with a third cousin of mine from Italy. He's my mom's cousin. He met famous people. I don't know. He was some sort of, not exact. I mean, I know he was the mayor at one point, my third cousin, of somewhere in Sicily. And he used to do things. He was on TV at one point back in like the 80s and 90s. He happened to meet Joe Montana and his wife and had dinner with them. Had something to do with his job where he met him. And that was kind of my first kind of interaction with football. And then, of course, you find out he's skinny, tall, people think he's awkward looking, and, he's half Irish, half Italian like myself. I'm like, okay, that's my new favorite athlete. And then he just happens to be the GOAT at the time. So I'll always have a special place for Joe, even though he seems kind of like, he doesn't really like talking football anymore, and he only does stuff for money. He's still my dude. I used to fight tooth and nail until Brady won at 7th. And then I was like, all right, I'll give it up. I won't fight the fight anymore for the rest of the fans.
He could have won 7 if he was protected like Brady. I mean, if they weren't allowed to hit him high and low and 2 seconds after the play was over. I mean, but yeah, it's hard to argue Brady's accomplishments are pretty epic.
Yeah, to me, the Giants would be the likely team just because we're going to already have played the Commanders, and I just think Giants are a lesser team than the Commanders. I mean, who do you really want to worry about on the Giants? Saquon? Does Danny Dimes drop fear into you when you think about him? No.
You know who scares me more than either of those teams? The
Who's that?
Lions.
The Lions.
Cowardly
Right.
Lions.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty hot. They've won 6 of their last 7, or 6-1 in their last 7, something like that. So they only have 1 loss in the time we've had 7 wins.
Yeah, the Lions definitely are a scary team. That is true. A lot of people are saying that the Vikings aren't really that scary, and I'm like, are you guys smoking crack? I mean, they have like a really talented offense, and they have Justin Jefferson. They do scare me, to be honest with you.
Well, and they have Hawkinson. I think part of the reason for the lack of fear over the Vikings is because their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, has been out for a while, but he's either back or should be back soon. And that changes things a lot. I mean, if you can protect Kirk Cousins, he's a darn good quarterback. He can hit the deep balls. He's a good. I mean, I don't know about on Monday Night Football, but any other time, he can produce. He's got a real good to interception ratio, and they got Dalvin Cook also, who's a hell of a back. And it's just their defense that's a little suspect. But if you score enough, a suspect defense doesn't really matter that much.
Damian Lee said Jerry Rice was his hero. Yeah, Jerry Rice was if Joe was 1, he was my 1.0. He's right behind him. I think I didn't relate to Jerry Rice because I wasn't talented or, I didn't have gigantic hands or I could. Jerry Rice is just a phenomenal athlete who wasn't even considered to be super fast. So, but it was Montana and Rice for me until it's still really Montana and Rice. I mean, no one's really taken over that in my mind. I mean, I love T.O., but T.O. ain't no Jerry. And the Niners haven't had a quarterback since Steve Young to anything really to get really too crazy about. So, I mean, Jerry and Joe, I'm one of those old heads, man, who like people talk about you live in the past. Yeah, because the past was really good and we were fantastic. And I wasn't a Steve Young fan. I kind of had issues with him. But Steve Young was our last quarterback who won us a championship. So right there, he's in my book, he's just as popular of a player as Rice in Montana.
Plus you said Joe's awkward, on the field. He's really awkward off the field too.
Yeah, I had Bashar told me about meeting him being at a game or something, watching his sons, and like they had people like security saying like not to talk to him, which is kind of weird. I don't know. That kind of makes me upset. Like, geez, I guess some people just don't want to talk about football once they retire unless they're getting paid to do it.
Well, he's got a lot of bitterness towards us for shipping him off to Kansas City. So I mean, I think that's what it really comes down to.
Spider Spy says Joe is a system QB, Brock is a system QB. Does it really matter if they get the job done? Does it really matter? It doesn't matter to me if someone's a system quarterback or not. What mattered to me is Joe did it in pressure situations, whether he's a system quarterback or not. He did it. To come back and win a Super Bowl within the last minute, going the length of the field and all that pressure. He was as cool as you can be. Anytime Joe Montana was in a Super Bowl, he played absolutely flawless.
Yep.
When it mattered most, when the Niners were on a Super Bowl run and they had a Super Bowl team, other than when they faced the Giants in a couple of years, but the Giants were just a better team because they were just more physical. He won. And he could be a system quarterback, but the fact of the matter is he's got 4 rings and 3 MVPs. And a lot of people say you can't use that argument. Why not? He did it.
Never threw an interception.
Never threw a pick in the Super Bowl. Almost 70% completion percentage of all time.
Never relied on a kicker to win a Super Bowl.
Nope. No
Unlike Mr.
Spygate, no
Brady.
Deflategate, none of that. Niners
Yeah.
had no. When the Niners won, there was no controversy because they usually
didn't need
ass.
the refs to bail him out like Brady did. I mean, so there's a lot of things you can knock Brady for sure.
Man, for all the times Montana got crushed by the Giants, did you see Montana once he was getting up and being put on the cart or on the stretcher or whatever, like putting his hands up like, what are you doing? Call a flag. Brady, during that game where the Niners were stomping him, he was losing his freaking mind. It's like unbelievable. That's why people don't respect Brady. He acts petulant. Like, dude, you got 7 rings. Shut up, you know? I guess we keep it on the offensive side of the ball, and we were talking about this earlier, so let's kind of revisit it. I asked this on the Monday show with the guys, and I'll ask you. I think you might have been in the crowd in the comments. CMC, was he worth the draft pick, the capital?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, even I would have given up more. I mean, he's our best offensive player this season. We've gone from 21 DVOA to like 4 or 3. Now, that's not all him. Some of that is the Niners are a second half of the season team. We saw it last year. We got better in the second half of the season. We're seeing it this year. Some of that was Trent Williams was out early in the season and Kittle. They both came back. Even McGlinchey was a little dinged up through the Chiefs game. So maybe even into the Chargers game. So, and some of that was playing some defenses that were maybe, not fully up to speed. The Chargers were missing Joey Bosa and JC Jackson. The Cards, all they had really was an aging JJ Watt. So you can kind of go through and nitpick or whatever you want to call it, find fault. But ultimately, CMC has been a huge addition. He's, in my opinion, our best offensive player this season. And in my article today, I was saying, when we played the best defense we played so far this season to the Denver Broncos, we had Debo. Well, there's not going to be Debo on Saturday. But we have Christian McCaffrey, and I think Christian McCaffrey has been better than Debo this season. So I think that's an advantage we have over the Commanders D that we didn't have against the Broncos D. I think Purdy's a little more mobile, a little bit better than Jimmy G. That's another one. And so, McCaffrey's been incredible. I'm so glad we got him. I'm so glad the Rams didn't get him. Think if the Rams didn't get him, if the Rams had got him, we probably would have lost them week 8. And who knows how the season goes from there for both teams. I mean, I think you could say the Rams probably would still be out of it, but I don't think we would be in it or not this far. And we certainly wouldn't have secured the number 3 seed already.
I think Christian McCaffrey is the reason why we are where we are. Just as much as Jimmy playing solid this year, and just as much as the young man Purdy coming on the scene and doing what he's had to do. I think without him, we don't get to where we are right now, and we don't capture the division as early as we did, or if at all. He's just been that much of a cheat code for this offense because, we got a lot of guys, but not a lot of them are, big separators. You know what I mean? A lot of them are after the catch type of individuals. He gets so much attention and draws so much attention. All you have to do is look at both touchdown passes to George Kittle as an example of how much respect that man garners. And then you say, you know what? Maybe he was worth whatever they're giving him. And then the fact that the Niners still have 9 picks going into next year's draft. I mean, they don't pick till the 3rd round, but they have multiple 3rds and multiple 5ths. And as long as they don't draft a running back in the 3rd, they might be good as gold. In the 5th round, we know is one of their magic rounds anyway. So 9 picks. We still are going to have them. It's not a 1-year rental. This isn't Emmanuel Sanders 1 year and gone. The Niners are going to have him. He's only 26 years old. And the argument that you made earlier, and I think an argument that a lot of 49er fans are making is I would love to see Jordan Mason, just because if we're going to have him the next however many years and he's only 26, let's not run him into the ground. So I would like to see a little bit of maybe a spreading of the ball, but Kyle he is who he is. He rides the hot hand until the hot hand doesn't work, and then he goes to somebody else. So Christian McCaffrey to me, just it's almost not fair. If we had like an all-star level quarterback, say like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, or even I'll even say Joe Burrow, he's playing really well this year, the 49ers would be automatic favorites to like go and win it all. I think the only reason everybody kind of doubts the 49ers could possibly win a Super Bowl is they just don't have that gunslinger at quarterback. Now they have a guy like Purdy who plays well within the system, but there's guys who can physically just uplift their team with just ridiculous. I mean, you watch Mahomes play and it's almost like everything he does is what you tell a quarterback not to do. But because he has such physical talent with his arm, he's able to get away with it. Same thing with sometimes with Josh Allen with some of the runs that he does. But CMC to me takes an slightly above average offense and makes it Super Bowl caliber. Debo coming back. If we don't need him, let's keep him till the playoffs. Ayuk, he hasn't gotten the ball much, but you know what, man? There's always going to be a game where he might get the ball and they might spotlight him. So this isn't like your normal offense where you can feed guys 6, 8, 10 times. The ball goes where the coverage dictates and where Kyle dictates. So, and what the strengths of the quarterback dictates too. Why fight against the skill of what the quarterback is? Do it what he does best, and if that means throwing to running backs and tight ends, then unfortunately, that's what the offense is going to be. I'm just happy that we have Christian McCaffrey and that he's been able to do and uplift this offense. He's bought totally into it. He likes being here, and he's going to be here for a couple of years. The Niners have a little bit of a window. I think I was listening to you say it on your show, but Mariah, possibly that the Niners have a little bit of a window right now. They have a 2 to 3, maybe to 4 year window to win some games. So. This isn't like a one-shot deal here. We're going to have them again next year, and then you add to that, anything we get in the draft or free agency, and the Niners might be right back at it next year, competing for a championship again. So, to me, it was a great signing.
Yeah, under contract till the end of 2025 season, so 3 more years after this.
Nice.
I mean, if he holds up that long, but that's like you said, why we want to, preserve him a little bit. Maybe don't run him into the ground, Kyle. That would be nice. But CMC is doing so well that it really bothers me when people try to compare Purdy and Lance, because Lance never had CMC. Lance barely had Kittle. And also Lance, most of the games he played were when the Niners were struggling. The Niners struggled at the beginning of the 2021 season before Lance played, and after Lance played, they still struggled before we started to win. After we went 3-5 was when we finally started to win. And he played the 5th game of the season. So against the Cards in Arizona, the hottest team in the NFL. And then, he played well versus the Texans, and people say, well, it's the Texans, but it was pressure packed, and we had to have it for the playoff win. And he was great in that second half. And then against the Bears, we struggled at the beginning of this season until, basically until the Kansas City Chiefs game. Until after that, this team was up and down, up and down, up and down. And it was a monsoon, and the defense was terrible, 100 yards and penalties almost. But more than the yardage on the penalties, it was at least one drive extending penalty on every single Justin Fields scoring drive. So every TD that he scored, there was a 3rd and down and long that, he was bailed out by a penalty twice. And then a second, and it wasn't long, but it was, inside the 10-yard line where Kinlaw had a hold that extended that drive, got him really close to, 1st and goal, real close to the goal line. I just think it's unfair to compare the two of them based on that, based on stats, especially when Purdy had an interception that was called back against the Bucs that I thought was a legit interception. He didn't see the defensive end drop in the zone blitz into zone coverage, never identified him, threw it right to him. And we got bailed out on what I thought was a BS call where they called holding on Jennings' defender. And then, and then in Seattle, he threw it right to Quandre Diggs, and Quandre Diggs dropped it. That was basically my play of the game from the Seahawks game, was the Quandre Diggs drop, and then the one, if I'm going to make a Niners play of the game, it was not long after that where Dre Greenlaw popped the ball out from Travis Homer. But so, all of a sudden, if you add 2 more interceptions to Brock Purdy's total, he starts to look a lot like Trey Lance, just with a higher completion percentage and lower yardage. And that's not even considering Trey Lance's running ability and running yards and running TDs, plus Trey Lance's ability to make our running backs run better by, playing 11 on 11 football. And so a lot of people say, Brock Purdy's, better, Trey Lance has a higher ceiling, but Brock Purdy's better now. I'm honestly going to tell you, I'm not sure that Brock Purdy's better now. We don't really know what Trey Lance would be in the system healthy. I love what Brock's doing. I love both quarterbacks. Don't think this is, I'm saying I don't want Brock, because I do. I want them both, though. I'm not one of those people that thinks it has to be either or.
Yep.
I think we can enjoy both quarterbacks without pooping all over Trey and saying, let's trade him. Like some
Grant Cohn thinks the Niners have a great situation going forward.
$10 million QB room.
Yeah. That's how you win championships in the NFL.
Yeah, look at the
play
Eagles.
cheap. You play cheap. Go at a QB and you build around it. And
they have a $4 million QB room. So yeah, why do you think they're so stacked?
Yeah, and Robert Marquez made a good point. Purdy has 4 years of college experience versus Lance.
Yeah, 48 starts compared to 17 in college.
I think
so
Trey Lance needs
3 times as much.
Lance just needs reps.
Yeah, he just needs.
He literally needs reps. These idiots that say he's a bust. How can you make that assumption?
It's ridiculous.
He's not even played 10 games in the NFL. Really?
It's ridiculous. He hasn't even played 5 games in the NFL.
And Purdy, he's not Montana.
No.
Like a lot of people, he's a system quarterback who plays well within the system. And that's what you ask for in this offense, is the quarterback to not turn it over, to feed to facilitate the playmakers. He's like a point guard. Mm-hmm. Stop jacking threes. Just hit your playmakers. Get out of the way. He's the Magic Johnson.
Plus, Montana wouldn't be Montana now anyway in this era. This pass happy era. You need a different quarterback that's bigger, taller, bigger arm. I mean, you can see what most of these quarterbacks are. And the top ones, the Burrows, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes, the Herberts, it's a different type of QB, and that's what we should aspire to. And that's what Trey Lance has the potential to be, for sure.
One thing that's been kind of under the surface that none of us have really noticed is just how well the offensive line has played lately. I think the offensive line has played as well as they've played in a long time, considering all the question marks we had coming in. Even McGlinchey. Spencer Burford, for the most part, when he's been healthy, has played well. Aaron Banks has played well. Trent Williams is Trent Williams, I think the two guys on the offensive line that are kind of the, maybe the guys that you don't like very much are Brendel and McGlinchey. McGlinchey's played well of late. And Brendel, you're not hearing his name. So, when you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's usually a good thing. I just think they're becoming comfortable in what they do as an offense. They're a fantastic run blocking offensive line. The holes that these guys blow open for running backs is insane. They almost remind me, and don't get on me for this, but they almost remind me a little of that Dallas offensive line back in like 91, 92, 93, where they had Nate Newton and all the other Gogan and all those guys, where they would just, do you look at the size of a guy like Burford and Aaron Banks and Trent Williams? They're massive. Brendel's kind of smallish and McGlinchey's really stretched out look. And my brother always calls him stretch neck because he has like this really long neck for a big, tall guy. So you got stretch neck and Brendel, and then you have these 3 behemoths. And so at times they're as dominant as you can get as far as an offensive line in the run game. Pass blocking, they've gotten better. They were a little bit suspect early in the year, and they've had some breakdowns in this season, killing drives. Mainly it's McGlinchey, but, sometimes it's been Brendel. Even Trent Williams has had some issues early on. But what do you think of the offensive line, how well they've played this year? Especially, I would say, the last 5 games, maybe?
Well, if we're going that far back, then I see some issues. The Saints, they weren't very good. And then the Dolphins game, they weren't that great. I'll be honest with you. In the Dolphins game, I thought Sealer did kind of a number on Banks. Banks got a penalty. He got blown up a few times. But yeah, in the Bucks game, they did well. And Seattle, they did real well. Here's a surprise hot take. Here's a hot take from me. I'm not really a hot take guy, as you know, but I'm going to make one that may surprise some people. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron Banks struggle. I mean, along with Brendel, who we expect. Someone who you don't expect to struggle is Aaron Banks, because he struggled against the Saints. He had 7 pressures he allowed, and their defensive tackles did really well against him. And now he's up against, Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. And those two guys have 7.5 and 8.5 sacks each. Also, Montez Sweat has 7 or 7.5 himself. I think he has 7.5, 8.5. I did a little research today for my article. So I'm worried about our interior offensive line in this game. They have been playing really well, but they haven't faced a defensive tackle tandem like this all season. Maybe the Denver Broncos was the closest thing with DJ Jones and their other Jones I think they have in there in the middle. So yeah, I mean, Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen scare me. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, I'm happy with their play. Not quite willing to go Dallas Cowboys early 90s with you yet, but hey, whatever.
Well, I don't mean as in overall dominance. I just mean the size of guys.
Oh yeah.
And some of the holes that they open up in the run game. I get a little Dallas vibes sometimes, because Emmitt Smith was in his heyday in Dallas. I mean, who couldn't run through those holes on that offensive line?
Yeah. And today, Akash Abernathan posted Trent Williams' hype speech from before the Seahawks game, and he went through with a lot of bleeps. He was definitely dropping some F-bombs in there that they cut out. And then at the end, he said, "Trenches on 3." And so that was what I started my article with, was that, tweet. And I said, Trent Williams said it last week, but I think this week it's going to be really true. I think this game will be won and lost in the trenches, because, the Niners pride ourselves on our D-line. I think the Commanders have a better, at least starting 4 on their D-line. I give our back 7 the edge. Obviously, we have the best linebackers in football. Dre is playing the best ball of any linebacker. And I said that even, he can't cover the middle as well as Warner is. Fred Warner is amazing in coverage over the middle. And then Azeez is clearly the best linebacker 3 in football. So I think we have the better back 7. I think we may even have better depth on the D-line with all our defensive ends that we have. We've got Ebicom, we've got Amenahu, we've got Hyder, we've got Drake Jackson, who has one of the best sack rates of any rookie. He's not leading in sacks for a rookie, but that's only because he has very few snaps. And then he's up there of one of the highest batted ball totals for any player on defense on any team, not just rookies. So I like that depth. I love, Mooney Ward. He's the best tackling cornerback in the NFL. And his coverage is not shoddy at all. I'd say it's pretty elite as well. We saw him pretty much shut down DK Metcalf in Seattle. Hufanga, I think you can make an argument he's a top 5 safety. He's had a few blown plays, usually about 1 per game he blows, but still his overall level of play is pretty amazing. Even Lenore has really come up. I think I saw a stat yesterday or today saying that he hasn't given up a touchdown all season. So a lot to like on this defense. I think the Commanders and us, I think they're it's like they just put the Niners in a copy machine and they copied us, and maybe they got the defensive line slightly better, at least the front 4. Especially like if Kinlaw doesn't play. I mean, if Kinlaw plays, then we're even talking, we might be better on the front 4. But, and copies, when you do them, they get a little bit, for old people who remember copy machines, the more copies you do, they get blurrier and blurrier each time. So I feel like the Redskins are just like a slightly blurrier copy of the Niners, where, Heineke is maybe not quite as good as Brock Purdy. And, I think Terry McLaurin's probably better than Ayuk, but, overall, our weapons are better than their weapons. I think our O-line is probably a little better than their O-line. Christian McCaffrey is definitely better than that rookie Brian Robinson, who's great for a rookie, but he's a rookie. And then the defense, like even if you give them the line, our back seven's so much better. We're the number one defense. So yeah, I think they're everything points to us being able to win the game. One thing I did say in the article was, I think 17 points probably wins this game one way or the other. I don't see, especially the Commanders, I don't see them scoring over 14 points in this game, and I'd be surprised if we score much over 20.
Well, we're talking about the defense. We transitioned from the offensive line to a lot about the defense. If we're going to talk about the defense, then I'm going to ask you the question that I asked on Monday to the guys. Best defense in franchise history?
No.
Not yet. Ted is not biting.
No, not yet. I mean, they're in that conversation. I mean, but look at the 84 D that we had that, shut down Marino in the Super Bowl. I mean, didn't shut him down, but they didn't score 20 against us. And Marino, that was one of the most prolific passing offensive of all time. He threw for 5,000 yards in the time when nobody did that, when people barely threw for 4,000 back then. Or even 3,500. So 84 D was pretty outstanding. 89 D was outstanding. 90 D was outstanding, but Roger Craig fumbled. So people forget that one. Yep. And then the 94 D was pretty unbelievable too, because, having Deion Sanders, I mean, just shutting down half the field, just take away their best wide receiver. Don't even bother to look at him, because if you do, even if you think he's open, Deion will make up the difference and make the interception. So statistically, maybe those defenses weren't better. But they got it done. They won championships. Now, talk to me in February. We win the Super Bowl, and if they play like this through the playoffs, then yeah, I mean, statistically, this team's better than a lot of Niner Ds ever, for sure.
I think they're one of the best. I do think they're slightly better than 2011. Yes. But you're right. A lot of us are prisoners of the moment, including myself. Winning a championship would stamp this defense as one of the best of all time.
Especially with a third string rookie QB, where you go. Yeah, and it'll stamp our defense and Kyle as like two of the best of all time, for sure.
And then, but it's, to me, the championship is kind of the piece of resistance to kind of give us to be able to say, like, okay, maybe we weren't the Baltimore Ravens or the Steel Curtain, but for the day and age in the NFL that we play in, with all the pass happy offenses, to do what we did was pretty phenomenal. So that's a fair assessment from you.
And let me back it up just a little too, and just say, let me give myself an out and say, if Kinlaw and Kalia Davis both come back and they play well,
that was my next question to you. Kinlaw and Kalia Davis, their practice window's open.
Yeah.
Do you think we see either of them?
Kalia Davis, a DJ Jones clone off the NFI. And the nice thing is that doesn't mess with our IR bring back. So we can,
because
still
he's
bring
never
back
played
Kinlaw and Mitchell, or like I keep hoping somehow Trey Lance will be one of those IR returns, but it's starting to look less and less likely. I got to maybe give up the hope on that. But yeah, I mean, if Kinlaw and Kalia Davis play, because that's like the only weakness on the defense right now is the defensive tackle depth. And if we're deep there, and Kinlaw's not even depth, man, he's a starter, he's an impact starter. Yeah, then I think we could easily start talking not just best Niner D of all time, but then we start getting in with the best Ds of all time. The 2000 Ravens, the 85 Bears, the 2002 Bucks. Those really historic Ds, and a lot of them coincidentally carried guys you would call, I don't even know, you call them game managers. You call them just game, don't F it up guys. Jim McMahon, he was nothing special. Brad Johnson for the Bucks, nothing special. Trent Dilfer is the running joke. I mean, that's the one where you're just like, oh man, if you can win with Trent Dilfer, that's the one where everybody says, oh, you don't need a good quarterback to win. Trent Dilfer won.
It was a different league though back then.
It was. That's true.
You didn't have the offenses like now. The Ravens didn't have to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs or Buffalo Bills.
Right. But although the Bills, I don't think they're as scary as they used to be.
No, I was telling my brother I'd rather play them because I think we could beat him. I think we could frustrate Josh Allen. Yeah, he's going to get his plays on us and he's going to run around, but we're also going to hit him.
Yeah,
And they don't have a really great
game.
Right, their run game is sus,
and the run D is sus. Obviously, look what Mostert did to him up there in Buffalo in the snow, in the freezing cold, and a little bit of snow. The Bills don't scare me as much. The team I'm probably most afraid of from the AFC is probably the Bengals right now, especially if you look at the Chiefs. They kind of struggled the last 2 weeks. I mean, they just played the Texans, and they were losing most of that game, and they won by like 4 points. I mean, some of it, I know Patrick Mahomes does that where he just kind of sandbags it if it's not, a super important game or a really big rival. You don't get his full effort from him. But I think we're starting to see some chinks in the armor from the Chiefs. The Dolphins are clearly beatable with going 0-3 on that road trip. And, and if they get to the playoffs, they're going to be going on the road. So I don't think they're in the same tier as those top 3 teams. The Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs still are my top 3.
Question back to the defense.
Secondary
versus McLaurin and Curtis. I know we kind of touched on it. Who do you think has the advantage?
If Heineke gets time, I think their weapons have the advantage. Terry McLaurin is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. He's already over 1,000 yards. Curtis Samuel is real close to 800 all-purpose yards. They kind of use him a little bit like Debo Samuel. So interesting, the Samuel twins, if you will. And then they have Jahan Dotson, who doesn't have a lot of yards, but he's got 6 TDs. I think McLaurin has 3. Curtis Samuel has 3, and then +1 running. And then Jahan Dotson on like 23 catches. He has 6 TDs. So talk about a TD vulture. That's the one to watch in the red zone, Jahan Dotson. And then, I think we're pretty good. I don't think they have a real burner we have to worry about, except for McLaurin himself. But I think he'll be on the outside. I think that'll be Mooney Ward. I think he can handle it pretty well. Jimmy Ward has been great in the nickel corners position. He's been just out of his mind the last couple games. God bless him. And then who's that leave? Lenore. I mean, Lenore's a little bit scary, but I feel like he's getting better every week. So
he's very underrated.
I'd say it's pretty close. I'd give a slight advantage to the Commanders' weapons, though. It's just like then I would take it away though because it's Heineke throwing to him. I mean, if I'm being honest, I did mention in my article. I do have a concern about if Heineke plays poorly, that they might put Wentz in, and not that Wentz is a good quarterback, but Wentz did beat us in 2020 on the Eagles. And then he did beat us in 2021 on the Colts. And I'm going to blame actually both of those more on Mullins losing the game against the Eagles and Jimmy Garoppolo losing the game against the Colts, because Mullins had, he had a pick, he had a lost fumble and a pick 6 that he threw. And Jimmy, he had a lost fumble and he threw 2 picks in that monsoon game. I was supposed to go to that game, and me and my buddy chickened out. We ended up going to watch it in a bar because it was just pouring ass rain. We're like, we're too old for this. You know what? We're just like, it's just like maybe when we were 20.
When you're 15 or 14, you want to play backyard ball. That's one thing. But when you're past a certain age where things start to hurt,
5-0,
nobody doesn't want to go in the rain and sit in it. Hell no.
No, not when it was pouring like that. So we chickened out. But ultimately, if Wentz comes in, I don't really fear him. I don't think he'll beat us. But if he did, like, how freaking embarrassing is that to lose to the same quarterback 3 years in a row on 3 different teams? And like, the Eagles and the Colts weren't that good any of those years. And obviously the Commanders aren't that good. I mean, they're a playoff contending team, but they're not a playoff team right now.
Right.
And I wonder if it wouldn't, I put in my article, I didn't look it up to find out, but I wonder if it's actually historic, if any teams ever lost to the same quarterback 3 years in a row on 3 different teams. It seems pretty unusual to me, but I don't know. The league's been around for a while, so who knows? But
that would be crazy.
Yeah, pretty wild.
2 last little things, and then we'll get out of here. The news that Franco Harris passed away today. Old Steelers running back, immaculate reception, part of that 4 4 championship teams with the Steelers of the 70s. You know, the Niners were the team of the 80s, partially into the 90s, but the Steelers own the 70s. And
they did.
Yeah, he was as iconic player as Terry Bradshaw, but he was actually talented.
Yeah.
And he was a Hall of Famer too.
Him and Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and most of that D. They had the steel curtain defense.
What was your thoughts?
Mean Joe Green.
Take you back to your childhood a little bit?
Oh, it does for sure. You know, I was a Niner fan since I started watching football in '76, but you know, the Niners were never in the playoffs until 1981. So when I was watching, so you know, I would always root for other teams, and one of the teams I actually rooted for, this is probably gonna get me a lot of grief, is the Dallas Cowboys. And so, yeah, I
can't be friends anymore.
I know. Well, I didn't understand, and I definitely didn't like the Steelers. But I respected the hell out of Franco Harris. I mean, he was a hell of a running back. He had soft hands.
Mm-hmm.
He ran really, really hard. He's one of the first like truck you running backs I ever saw. You know, even before Walter Payton. And so like just amazing agility and like almost like ballerina you know, moves and great hands catching out of the backfield, including the immaculate reception. If you believe it was a reception, there's still controversy because there was no good angle on the replay to actually figure out if he actually caught it, but it was ruled a catch, and that's how it goes down.
I gotta let it go at this point.
Yeah, no, you do,
we're going on 50 years. Safe to say that it happened.
So yeah, I mean, and those teams were super dominant. You know, they had a dominant defense, great run game, courtesy of Franco Harris. Lynn Swann made the acrobatic catches, and Stallworth was sort of more the possession receiver, and Rocky Bleier, I think, is he the running back or the tight end? Now I'm blanking out on that. But ultimately, they had a lot of great names. Great to watch. Sad to see him go. Just highlights to me, you know, why these guys have to get their bag when they can. You know, football players don't tend to live really long lives or have a really good quality of life after they play. And so it's really important that they get paid for what they do, because, you know, 72, that's not very old for the average American.
My mom is going to be 68 this year. So
yeah, my parents are both pushing up on 80. So yeah, no, it's sad to see, and definitely an NFL legend, and, you know, a great guy, and you know, prayers up for him and his family. So definitely.
He's you know, as a football fan going on 30 years, you know, watching highlights and learning the history of the game, you know, if you're going to call yourself a fan, you got to know where you came from, and not just 49er history, league history. And he was one of the best players on one of the best teams of the decade of the 70s. You know, they were kind of like they set the table for a team like the 49ers, you know, kind of show you how to build a franchise. And you know, the Niners might not have had an all-time great D and all that, but, you know, it was all about, you know, good players, good people buying into a common goal and doing what they can to win championships. And the Niners had 4 kind of pretty much within the same kind of time span as the Steelers did. So they were just pretty much the Steelers of the 80s. But yeah, rest in peace to Franco Harris. That sucks. I always see as like professional wrestlers and football players seem to not live a long time. Those are like 2 professions where people just, their bodies are so destroyed. You know, you see them in their 70s and I mean, you look at Joe Montana now, he's just physically just decimated from all the physicality he took. It's sad. And then there's some guys that look really good. It'll be interesting to see Tom Brady in his 60s. He'll probably still be upright and in shape because no one ever touched him when he played. So, and then the last question for you is,
he's coddled.
Yeah, he is coddled. And my last question to you is, do we win out, and do you care if we win out?
You know, Larry Krueger asked that question on the timeline a while back. I think it was before the Dolphins game. I said, don't bet your rent money, because I didn't see us going 3-0 in the last 3 games that we won. I thought we'd go 2-3 at the best, 2 out of 3 at the best. And then now I'll say we won't win, not because we can't or because there's a ton of tough teams. It's really just the Commanders. I think the Raiders are playing a little bit better than people might want to realize. Josh Jacobs is running the hell out of the ball. He's got almost 1,500 rushing yards. He's almost a full 200 yards ahead of Derrick Henry, who's in a distant second place for the rushing title. And, they just got Waller back, and he is one of the best receivers in the game up there, along with, obviously, I'm trying to say Devontae Adams. There we go. And Carr is sort of hot and cold, but ultimately I think clinching the third, if it becomes obvious that we won't get it, I think we'll maybe slow down. Even if we don't rest a lot of guys, I think we'll take our foot off the gas a little bit. It's hard to win games in the NFL, even against bad teams. And so I'm still going to say I don't see us going 3-0 to close out the season. Not that we can't or shouldn't, but just because of that number 3 seed already being locked up. Maybe we'll a little bit.
Anonymous Effer says the Niners losing in the regular season wouldn't worry me at all. Kind of would be easier to breathe in the playoffs, getting that first loss out of the way. I kind of have the same feeling. I feel like the thing with streaks is the whole thing about streaks is breaking them, getting them broken. So if the Niners dropped one, and even if it was a close loss, then they, maybe they got lit up a couple times during the Raiders game. As long as you know what you got and you know that the formula is going to work in the playoffs, then, I agree with Mr. Effer. I'd get it out of the way now, as opposed to the playoffs where it bites you and you're clearly the better team. But, sometimes in the playoffs, the better team loses and the worst team wins, and it's just random ass stuff. And I think one of the things that can affect that is a team that is either been on a high winning streak or a team that comes into the playoffs cold. You know what I mean? So it's the Niners are going to have to use kid gloves these next couple weeks. Try not to get anybody hurt that's of any value, and at the same time, try to get the number 2 seed if they falter the Vikings. But at the same time, if you're not able to get the 2 seed, figure out a way to play but not get yourself hurt, whether that means certain people not playing. That's why we don't make all the money and the coaches do, and the people in the building have all those problems. So I'm looking forward to this game. I think we beat the Commanders 24-17, 24-12. I don't know, something along those lines. I don't see the Niners scoring a lot of points in this game. And I don't think the Niners are going to give up a lot of points in this game. This game's going to be kind of a wash. But then again, the Niners could surprise us and put a 30 burger on the board. They can do that sometimes. So
maybe if the defense scores.
Yeah. What do you think? Close game?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking 17-13, something like that.
Raphael 5262 says 24-10. That would be nice and comfortable if they did that, but we'll see. It's cool. We get football on a Saturday. So it's what
I hope we blow them out, because
me too.
I have to go to church at 3:30, and so I'm gonna be no spoilers, trying to get back to my DVR. So
give God your mind for a little bit of the day and the 49ers. Sorry, I'm not completely here with you. I'm worried about my team.
Exactly. Any thought of a live stream or even live tweets? I guess I could come back to the tweets from the recording, but it's not the same if people aren't interacting with them. So,
right. All right, Ted. We did it. We got through another show. No bumps or bruises. We're better for it. Appreciate everybody coming through here and supporting the stream tonight. Hope you guys like the new overlay. Thanks to Ted and his homie. I think it looks fantastic. Looks really good, to be honest with you.
Roscoe's Mister.
I might have to chat him up and do a little bit of updating on my channel, and maybe even with an intro. So
yeah, anyone who's interested, just DM me. I'll get you his information. I'll make the introduction, and he's very reasonable, and the work just speaks for itself. So.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Any other news on the channel? Any certain guests coming on this week that we should watch out for?
I have nothing else scheduled, so I need to get some things on the books for Thursday and Friday, because then I'm out of town. I'll be gone from Christmas Day through the 4th. So I guess that's something, we're scheduled right now for a week from today at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, but we may have to jiggle that time a little bit next Wednesday. And then the following Wednesday on the 4th of January, I will be traveling. So we absolutely will not have a show that day. We might push it up a day to Tuesday, or more likely back a day to Thursday, so I can be back here in the studio with, higher quality camera, mic, all that good stuff. Rather
we'll
than
keep you updated, because things are going to be a little, with him being out of town, and I have a doctor's appointment to determine if I'm going to have knee surgery on the 1st of January. So depending on, I'll be home. It'll be earlier in the day, but at some point in January, if we're still playing, I might have surgery, so I might be a little bit out of it that day. Hopefully the Niners got everything taken care of by then. My Friday show with Celts, things are a little bit up in the air right now because, sometimes, we agree to things, and then, I don't have a family or kids. So sometimes that, a lot of times, all the time, those things are more important. So I think things with the Mean and Celts should be on for this Friday, I hope. But I'll keep you guys updated on that. It might have to go back to Thursdays. I'm trying to keep in contact with the Mean, the Dream, and Celts. I might have to get.
Celts isn't from the South.
No, he's a Bay Area guy.
Yeah, I just, when I saw him on your show, I heard that drawl, and I was like, sure, you know what? He's from somewhere in the deep South. And he's like, nope, South Vallejo. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yep.
I was like, you got that cool accent here in the Bay. I grew up here, and I'm like Mr. Boring with my normal, whatever accent this is, California.
Yeah, you're very laid back. I got kind of a Howard Stern, Ray Romano kind of thing going. I'm very East Coast.
Yeah, indeed. Well, anyway, I love bringing that up because I'm a little jealous of him. He's got a cool way he pronounces things. It's kind of cool. He's like a cool breeze. He's a good dude. So I'll keep you guys updated on the Friday show. Hope everything goes well with that. I do have a guest possibly coming on Friday. Ashley from Touchdowns and Tight Ends. She's a 49er fan. So if you guys haven't heard of them, go check out their channel, Touchdowns and Tight Ends. I'm trying to get eyes on other channels besides mine. So jump on Ted's channel, Ted Talks Ball, whenever you can. Support him when he streams. And then with Ashley possibly coming on Friday, I'll definitely have her stuff in the description. You just want to get your eyes on Ashley. Let's be honest.
No, that's a married woman. That's no.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's good. I'm good. I stay clear of anything of that nature. No, she's a Niners fan. I just like getting a lady's perspective on things. It's cool to talk with women that love football. It kind of breaks that stereotype that it's only men and only the ones that know. Her and she has a Chargers fan. Her name's Nicole. Nicole and her do a show. Nicole's a Chargers fan. They've known each other for like life. They've known each other going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. I think they swam together on a swim team. So, they're real cool chicks. I had them on probably a year ago. They got their channel going. They don't stream very often. They're both busy, working moms and stuff. So hopefully Ashley's on with me Friday, and hopefully I can have Celts and Amin, and it'll be a nice, cool, full show. But thanks everybody for coming through. Appreciate the love and support. And me and Ted will see you when we see you. We'll keep you updated on when exactly that'll be. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.